I hope you didn't stay up all night waiting for the end of the Mets Marlins game, but I do hope you stayed up late to watch the end of the Mariners Rangers game. Do you know why? It was a good one.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. There's my lower third. You can call me Sully. I am an Emmy-nominated television producer who has been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade now. This is my fifth full season here at the Locked On Podcast Network. Follow us and have us be your first listen every day. Be an everyday listener. Be an everyday Sully. That's right. Where's my little everyday Sully thing there? Oh, well, there you go. I thought I had a banner there. Yeah, there it is. Be an everyday Sully, which is someone who listens every day. I know I've got a bunch of you. I had some new fans who listened to the Braves show the other day. A couple of you like the fact that I trashed the Cubs announcers. A couple of people point out the fact that they like the fact that I didn't care if they had a celebration. They could have a marching band on the field. I don't care. The Braves aren't there to soothe the feelings of the Chicago Cubs. But follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever the hell it's called now. And on Instagram, you can follow me. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter. Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Follow us on YouTube. That may be the only way to follow us pretty soon based on, I don't know. There's weird things happening on the podcast world. I don't quite understand it. I just come on here and yap and yap and yap and yap. We are now beginning the final weekend of the season, and we're still weird things are happening. And there are two scenarios that I'm dying to see happen. One is the potential of a logjam in the American League West, and the potential of having two teams go on an off day to play one inning. Those are two weird things that could happen that are not outlandish when you consider the fact that there's only 3 games left in the season. Let's first of all talk about the trivia question. The trivia question I gave the other day. By the way, I got a lot of people writing in about the from the Braves episode I did the other day. And so, but the trivia question I gave was, who has the most home runs in Milwaukee Braves history, and who has the most home runs in Atlanta Braves history? And the hint was neither answer is Henry Aaron, because Henry Aaron split his career between Milwaukee and Atlanta. And a couple of you got it right. Eric Love got it right, although he was a little tentative. Corey Osmer got it right. A couple other people got it right. Those are the two. Oh, and John Murphy Jr., who's constantly throwing stuff out there. You all said the right answer, which is Eddie Matthews, who actually played for the Boston Braves, the Milwaukee Braves, and the Atlanta Braves. Picked up a World Series title in Milwaukee, and later bounced around a little bit, played for the Astros and the Tigers, and finished his career winning another World Series ring with the Tigers. Thank you very much. Eddie Matthews played the bulk of his career with the Milwaukee Braves, and he has the most home runs in Milwaukee Brave history. And Chipper Jones has the most of any Atlanta Brave. And in fact, Henry Aaron is third place on the all-time Atlanta Brave list behind Chipper Jones and friend of the podcast, Dale Murphy. So there you go. Now, of course, Henry Aaron, so many things are, I've talked a lot about Henry Aaron over the years. For those of you who are new to the show, I will say my two favorite statistics about Henry Aaron. First of all, he hit 755 home runs over a 23-year career, which means he averaged 35 home runs a year. 35 home runs a year as an average over 23 years, and the man never hit 50. He never got a 50 home run season, which means he never had that one season where all right, it spiked. That he just, okay, I hit a ton of home runs that year, and that made up for that year he only had 11 or 12 home runs. No, every year he's in the mid 30s to the 40s to the low 30s to the mid 40s. Like he was just constant because he never had that one year to throw it all out of whack. But here's my favorite Henry Aaron uh, uh, stat is if every single home run that Henry Aaron hit was caught at the warning track and all of his other hits were the same, and he finished with 0 home runs and still kept the remainder of his hits in his career, he'd still be in the Hall of Fame because he got 3,700 some odd hits. He got 3,000 hits in his career that were not home runs. He's absolutely remarkable. We'll catch up maybe on my bonus show I'm going to do over the weekend. I'm going to read through some of the fun comments that some of you all wrote there. But let's get to what happened today. The Seattle Mariners were basically staring at their death today. A wonderful season they've had in Seattle, and a weird season with the Texas Rangers, where at some point they looked like they were going to be the favorite to win the American League pennant. And at some points they look like, oh my God, they've fallen in the middle of September, they fell completely out of the wild card. They were outside looking in. And today they're on the verge of winning their 90th win, which would have clinched a playoff spot and pretty much put them in a position where they just would have to, ease into port, and they would have been the American League West champion. And today, the Mariners threw Logan Gilbert, who pitched very well. He only got up 3 hits and didn't walk a batter, but he was behind the 8 ball because the Texas Rangers threw Jordan Montgomery, who turned out to be probably the best pitching acquisition of all the big names that were bouncing around. Montgomery has been wonderful, and he let up only a solo home run to Julio Rodriguez. Was the only run they got off of him. Mariners blew big chance after big chance. The score was 2-1 going into the 9th inning, and the Mariners just looked dead. And then came the sign of hope for all teams that are facing an uphill battle. The person who gives a sense of, oh my God, we might be able to win this game. Aroldis Chapman. Now, I've made it clear I'm not a fan of Aroldis Chapman as a human being, not a fan of domestic violence. I can also point out, just talking about baseball, he has blown saves and lost playoff games for the Reds, for the Cubs, for the Yankees, and boy, oh boy, he looks poised to do it for the Rangers. Yes, he strikes out a ton of batters. Yes, he has tremendous regular season stats. He's also blown huge games and have done so in multiple years. Yeah, there is sometimes issues of were the Astros cheating here or there, but he blew a save in every round of the 2016 postseason for the Cubs. It wasn't just the Rajai Davis home run. Joey, if Jason Kipnis' foul ball hit the foul pole and the Indians won that game, then he would have been the GOAT of all GOATs for a franchise that was obsessed with a GOAT. But he blew postseason games for the Reds, for the Yankees, letting up the walk-off homer to Altuve, other big hits along the way, including to Tampa Bay. And there was no buzzers and beating trash cans then. And lo and behold, he came in today and was just a disaster. I mean, he was throwing at 100 miles an hour into the ground. Put them in a bases loaded, nobody out situation. Now, Bruce Bochy brought in some poor schmuck, named Jonathan Hernandez, to come in and with an ERA over 5, to come in and try to get himself out of a bases loaded, nobody out situation. And to the dude's credit, he got the next two batters to pop up, and it looked like he was going to get out of it. And then J.P. Crawford hit a line drive. The left fielder for the Rangers, who was I forget who was playing left field for the Texas Rangers. Let's go to the tape. It was Carter. Thank you very much. Get Carter could not get the ball, and the ball bounced off the wall, and with that, the tying and winning run came in. There are 3 games left. It is not out of the realm of possibility to win 3 games. We've seen that, and we've demonstrated that teams can beat another team 3 games in a row, even when it makes no sense. You don't believe me? Just last weekend, the 100-loss Kansas City Royals swept the defending World Series champion Houston Astros in Houston. We've also seen that the Rangers bullpen, what's the word I'm looking for, is awful. Absolutely awful. And so in today's game, you're going to see the Wu is going to be pitching for the Mariners. Not sure who's pitching for Texas. And the Astros come back in and play Arizona. And they're going to be Francis pitching against Zach Gallen, who has still clinging to whatever hopes he has to winning a Cy Young. Now, I am going to go through a lot of the YouTube comments, but I will say that Mark Fahey, who's been a follower of the podcast for a while, pointing out there is a path for the division title for the Mariners. Sweep the Rangers. So they got to win 3 in a row. Teams can win 3 in a row. Have the Astros take 2 out of 3 from Arizona. That would mean there would be a 3-way tie. And when it comes down to tiebreakers and everything, in that 3-way tie, Seattle wins. Is that true? I'm going by Mark Fahey's. Why would Mark Fahey lie to me? I was under the impression that the Rangers had won the season series, but you know what? Look, the fact of the matter is we have the possibility for anarchy. And if Seattle winds up sweeping the Texas Rangers, they would get into the postseason. There would be a logjam. And folks, that's all we really want, isn't it? We want a little bit of chaos. We want a little bit of anarchy. And I want to see the teams go into the final game of the season and say, I don't know what's happening. And more to the point, I want the final game of the season to happen and still have to play one more inning. We'll explain after this. Oh boy, it is the time of the year where big name players are coming up big, getting big hits, coming up big for all the people who are following them on their fantasy team and everything. And the playoffs are going to be in just a matter of days. That means the clock is ticking on your chance to win 100 times your cash on daily fantasy baseball. Baseball hasn't been more exciting as right now. You got J.P. Crawford getting big hits. You got Garrett Cole showing why he's the Cy Young Award winner. Zach Gallen is going to be great. Who knows how many more home runs Aaron Judge is going to hit. Pick more or less stats for these stars like home runs, hits, strikeouts, and more for up to 100 times payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right, and you can win big. And the entries can be made in under a minute. So take your picks, pick your players, roll the dice on them, and you can use promo code LOCKEDON, and you'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Sleeper, it's time to win. It's time to win big. I was going to focus today's show on the Marlins because the Marlins showed a tremendous amount of guts today. The Marlins went to Citi Field, home of the New York Metropolitans, and the pitching staffs of the both pitchers just beautifully locked antlers. Luzardo was marvelous, absolutely marvelous for the for the Marlins. And not to be outdone was Robertson. Robertson pitched 7 shutout innings. Luzardo pitched 7 and a third innings, where he only let up 1 run and struck out 10 along the way. But the Mets took the lead off of Luzardo because the Marlins bullpen is a tad pooped. And so the Mets took a 1-0 lead and went to the 9th inning with that lead. And remember, they don't have Edwin Diaz. They don't have Diaz anymore. And so Hartwig came in, and he had been pitched out of a jam in the 8th. And so they handed him the ball, and he let a runner on. Kay came in, and suddenly the Marlins rallied. Gurriel got the big single, and the Marlins took a 2-1 lead. However, the skies opened up. It got to the point that people in Flushing, Queens were looking around saying, do I have 2 of every animal right here? Because that may be applicable. Just covering my bases. All right? And they put the tarp on for hours with a 2-1 game in the 9th. And the monsoon started coming. Now, the Marlins have to play in Pittsburgh tomorrow. That game has playoff ramifications. This game played tonight has playoff ramifications because the Cubs did what they did best, and that is they lost to the Atlanta Braves. The Braves completed the sweep. The final score today was 5-3. I have no idea if the announcers of the Cubs complained about anything, but the fact of the matter is, Wright got the win. Stroman got the loss. 5-3 was the final. The Braves have 103 wins, and the Cubs look like they got swept by the best team in baseball, and the Braves certainly look like the best team in baseball. And if the Marlins had held on to the score, the Cubs would be half a game out going into this final weekend. As it stands, it would be a full game out, going to this final weekend. As it stands right now, they're half a game out. Now the Marlins are going to head to Pittsburgh. Now, if it should come to pass that the Marlins and the Cubs are in some sort of a tie, and the Marlins need to play that final game, that means they would have to fly back to New York and pick up the game where it existed, which was 2-1 in the 9th. They would have to fly back to New York and play an inning. I'm going to make a modest proposal. The Mets are playing the Phillies. The Phillies have clinched. And they are not going to, and if, as far as I can see, like right now, they are going to be the wild card team, and Arizona can't catch them. So they're not going to move up or down in the standings. They're not going to catch Atlanta. The Braves already clinched the division. But Arizona, Miami, Chicago, they can't catch Philadelphia. There are not enough games. The Phillies have a 5-game lead in the loss column over Arizona, who, by the way, lost stupidly to the Chicago White Sox in a game which should have been an easy win for them. But the Diamondbacks are in decent shape, provided they don't wet the bed over the weekend against the Houston Astros. That should be a really good series because both of those teams are kind of fighting for their playoff lives. And oddly, the Diamondbacks are in a stronger position. I digress. I say you call that final game between the Phillies and the Mets because it doesn't mean anything. And on the final day of the season, the Marlins, where the Marlins are going to be in Pittsburgh, right? So for the final game of the season, the Marlins are in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So the Mets on the final day of the season should just go to Pittsburgh and wait there. And if at the end of the final game, you need to play that final inning, the Mets come out and they just play that final inning. Let's save a lot of time. the Phillies-Mets game means nothing. So just have them standing by in Pittsburgh. And if it turns out the Marlins clinch that day and it makes it an irrelevant cause, well, then the Mets have a lovely trip to Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh is a very nice city. But that I want that sort of anarchy to happen. And you know what? It may not take a lot to get that. I'm just saying. Gotta tell you something really happened here. I was making dinner for my kids. We were making like ground turkey tacos is what I was doing. My sons were here, and I realized that I didn't have the tortillas that they liked. And I also know that my sons like a specific type of mineral water, little, sparkling water, and I had run out of that. So what am I going to do? Am I going to slap some ground turkey on white bread and force some drink out of the faucet? No. Dad came through. Right tortillas and the right mineral water. How did I do it? How did I do it without leaving the house? I'll tell you how. DoorDash grocery delivery. You can get what you want right when you need it with DoorDash grocery delivery. You have the convenience of getting what you want right to your door. I say, oh, guys, hold on. Boom. Hey, look at that. Tortillas, fizzy water, all is well. Now, tell you what, you've trusted DoorDash to deliver you from your favorite restaurants. Now you can get grocery delivery that delivers too. Thousands of grocery stores to choose from. And I got the exact brand of the fizzy water, carbonated water, mineral water, whatever you want to call it, and the exact brand of tortilla that they like. I didn't have to say, well, is this good enough? Boom. Because they have thousands of grocery stores that they choose and pull from. The best in the neighborhood. And we got to boost our local economy. We got exactly what we ordered, or they'd make it right. We didn't have to worry about that because they did it perfectly. Sit back, enjoy quality groceries. I didn't miss a pitch of the Mariners-Rangers game to go out to the grocery store. Boom, it came to us. You want even more value? You can save on all your groceries and restaurant favorites with zero delivery fee. No dollars. You can afford that on all eligible orders with a Dash Pass membership. Easy substitutions right in the app and best-in-class customer support. DoorDash delivers groceries exactly how you want it. Get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to a $20 value when you use code LOCKEDONMLB at checkout. Limited time only and terms apply. That's 50% off up to $20, no minimum, subtotal, and zero delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store. Enter code LOCKEDONMLB. Don't forget, that's code LOCKEDONMLB for 50% off your first order with, say it with me, DoorDash. So the Red Sox have decided to take the rest of the year off. They certainly have been playing like teams that are already playing golf. They were shut out today by the Baltimore Orioles, and with that, the Baltimore Orioles are the American League Eastern Division champs. And with that, they're a 100-win team. And I have to say, I got to give the Baltimore Orioles a whole heck of a lot of credit. I was skeptical, even when the Orioles went into first place. And Oriole fans gave me a lot of grief. But I was like, look at, is this going to be a team that is kind of a paper tiger? I thought they made a big mistake at the trade deadline because they have an incredibly deep farm system with blue chip prospects and not enough spots on the major league roster to play all their prospects. And I thought they have a chance, especially with Boston disappointing, especially with New York disappointing. They had a chance to be an elite team with the lane open to the pennant. And I thought they should have used some of those prospects to make the team better. And I had a lot of misgivings about their rotation. I thought, as I said, I thought they should have been in on Otani. I thought they should have been in on Scherzer. I thought they should have been in on Verlander. And I did give them grief. Now, I'm not saying it's over. If they go into the postseason and they get clobbered because of their pitching staff, I will point back that I was right. But I will say you've seen Dean Kramer pitching well. You've seen Kyle Gibson pitching well. You've seen the team pitching, the way you would hope a championship caliber team would pitch. Bautista being hurt means their bullpen's a little more vulnerable than you would like it to be. But this is also an American League that's more vulnerable than you'd like it to be. And look, I think Toronto is going to be very dangerous in a short series. I think Tampa Bay will be very dangerous in a short series. And hell, if Houston obviously is a very talented team and would play well in a short series, and hell, the Minnesota Twins have good pitching and they could win in a short series. All these statements are true, but the Orioles just look really good right now, and they may be a team, provided someone else really steps up in their bullpen. If they don't have Bautista pitching in the postseason, it's a vulnerable American League. And as it stands right now, the Baltimore Orioles would play the winner of the Toronto Tampa Bay wild card series, while the Texas Rangers would play the winner of Minnesota versus either Houston or Seattle. Man, Tampa Bay and Toronto would be a rough matchup for the Baltimore Orioles. But again, give the Orioles credit. The Orioles have been doing everything you need them to do. They've been pitching well when they need to pitch well. They've been getting the big hits when they need to get the big hits. And it isn't about how they've played all year. It's about how they're playing now. And if you take a look at how they're playing now, they have the best record in the American League. And they have done so with a pitching staff, which, you know what? You may not have the prettiest stats in terms of win losses and ERAs and everything like that, but they're doing the job. The Orioles are 17-9 in September. They're 18-9 in August. They were 17-9 in July. Wow. That's unbelievable. They've had three now, assuming that they can win tomorrow and the next day. If they win those two games, then the final 3 months of the season, they would have single-digit losses for the month. That's what they have to do. And mind you, they're playing the Red Sox, who have given up, who have waved the white flag. Pivetta, who's a fine pitcher, doesn't, has an okay year, is going up against Means. If the Orioles, finish the season where they have 3 straight months of single-digit losses, at some point you got to say, I've detected a pattern. Maybe they know how to win right now. Maybe they're winning all the games they're supposed to win right now. And you got, I admit I was skeptical about Baltimore. And yes, they have feasted. I mean, against if you combine their record against the A's and the Royals, they're 11-2 against those teams. They beat the snot out of bad teams, but they're apparently beating good teams too. So maybe you got to give them credit. What I do think is that the American League is a complete and total coin toss. Right now, I think Atlanta has to be considered the favorite to win the National League, but boy, you can make a case for any team in the American League. It's going to be really, really fun. But one thing that's also fun is the fact that, look at Angelos, the owner of the Orioles and the son of the former owner, has always been someone who struck me as a bit of a nitwit. When you have someone who is the son of the owner, that's a red flag. That's the, oh boy, that's your Hal Steinbrenner. That's your Fredo Corleone. That's your Hunter Biden. That's your Eric Trump. See, it's not political. Sons of successful people. You could point to exceptions every once in a while. There every once in a while there's a Rob Reiner who, even if you don't like his politics, was a pretty great film director, and is the son of Carl Reiner, of course. But the Orioles were making noise about, was there a possibility they were going to leave Baltimore? And I joked that they were looking for a Camden Yards style stadium. They just signed a 30-year extension. 30 years. So in 2053, they'll still be the Baltimore Orioles. And that's a good thing, because the Orioles should be a beloved institution in Baltimore. When I was younger, they were one of the elite teams in all of baseball. That's the way they should be. And Baltimore is a great baseball town, not just for its history. And we just lost Brooks Robinson, one of the greatest figures in Baltimore history, but just beyond that. At the beginning of the 20th century, the most dominant figure in New York baseball from the 1900s and the 1910s into the 1920s was John McGraw, born in Baltimore. And he was overtaken by Babe Ruth, born in Baltimore. There's great legacy in Baltimore, and now they have images of going to the World Series for the first time since Ronald Reagan was in his first term, for the first time since there were only 3 Star Wars movies. And Return of the Jedi was the bad one. What I'd give for Return of the Jedi right now. I digress. So I'm glad they're sticking around. They should stick around. They should be a Baltimore institution. And one of these years, we'll see a World Series played in Camden Yards. But that's going to bring us to today's trivia question. The Golden Spikes Award is kind of the baseball equivalent of the Heisman Trophy, given out to the best college player, as the top college baseball player. Cal State Fullerton's Tim Wallach, as I mentioned that, earning my master's degree through Cal State Fullerton. Nothing wrong with that. Mark Kotz, he won it back in 1979. Terry Francona, who was going to go to the Hall of Fame, won it in 1980. There's some other big names there. Will Clark, Bob Horner, current Angels manager Phil Nevin, current A's manager Mark Kotze. Some big stars are in there, and a lot of players who were good but not necessarily great. But the question is, who is the first, and as of this recording, only person to win the Golden Spikes Award and also win the World Series MVP? The only former Golden Spikes Award winner to win the World Series MVP. Write your answers down here on YouTube or on Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram, or at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. I'm going to be doing updates through the weekend because it's going to be a wild, wild weekend of games. I'm also going to read some stuff that were written by some of the Braves fans on the other day. So, all right, and boy, I got to tell you, I really hope they play that final inning. I really hope they play that final inning. It's so insane if they'd have to come back to play one inning. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love when baseball gets weird. Talking about a crazy day of baseball, including a day where the Mariners rattled Aroldis Chapman and held on to stay alive, and where the Marlins did everything they could except control the weather, and the Orioles did their job clinching and made an agreement to stick around. This has been Locked On MLB for the 29th day of September, 2023. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.